Broadcasting from the Symphony Studios in Marietta, Georgia, it's time for the Technology Harmony Podcast, brought to you by Symphony Technology Solutions. Tune in every week as we spotlight the very best minds in our industry. Now here are your hosts.
Hi, I'm Leo Dess, and this episode of the Technology Harmony Podcast is sponsored by The Inside. To stay up to date on how we are creating technology harmony with Symphony, subscribe to all of our content on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the 20th episode of the Technology Harmony Podcast, brought to you by Symphony Technology Solutions. I am your host today, Katie Galley, and I am joined in the Symphony studio by Managing Director at EMD, Cyber and Physical Security and Technology Leader, and co-host of the Security IQ Podcast, Min Kyriannis. How are you doing, Min?
I'm doing good. Thanks, Katie. You're so cute.
I am not. I'm doing just you got a lot of titles there. Just doing so much, doing such great things. I just stumble over my words.
No, you're doing fine. Thank you so much. You haven't heard me tongue-tied yet, so it's all good.
It's a long interview, so could get there. Well, Min, again, thank you so much for stopping by to share your story. To get to know you a little bit and know your background, can you share with us a little bit about your professional journey and how you got the job that you have today?
Oh, wow. That's a tricky question. I have to figure out if I'm telling the truth or I'm lying right now. Just kidding. So in 94, that gives away my age. When I first started college, I was actually literally hired full-time. And this is when the internet was booming back then. So I was actually hired full-time by the school to actually work as a computer person at the university. And luckily, because one of the benefits of working at university was you get tuition remission. So it took me a little bit to kind of, graduate, maybe a year more. But at the end of the day, they pay for my tuition. I got my master's. I got both my bachelor's and master's, but I also elevated in the position from, a hands-on technician all the way to a project manager. And then later on, decided to leave and pursue my dreams of, quote unquote, cooking. So I was trained professionally as a chef as well at one point in time, and I used to cater.
Wow.
But then I was brought back by a colleague who was looking for a technical project manager in the physical security world. And that's when I started going to security. And that was back in, I must have resigned maybe a year and a half before they came and said, hey, would you like to have a job? So they literally gave me the job. And ever since then, I haven't left. Back in a job, and then a few years later, an opportunity came up where there was to kind of pretty much take cybersecurity and start kind of building, I would say, standards, bring in building systems. So physical security becomes a part of the package, but it's all the building systems on the operational technology side. And confidently, I can say I'm one of the rare few that actually understands that world in combination with everything to build together a set of cyber requirements on the operational technology side. So I've pretty much stepped across different markets. And to be honest, it was luck. A lot of it was luck, but I have to say I was also knocking on a lot of doors at the same time just to see how I would learn and grow. And really it took a lot because it was a very male-dominated industry back in the 1994s. And then going to security, it's another male-dominated industry. So it took a lot of working and earning the respect of my peers back then to get to where I am right now. And even now, I go out, have fun with the same people, same folks. And, I can't complain. So it's been a fun ride.
Yeah. So, Min getting involved, that's very interesting that you found a path for cooking and then, found your way back to tech.
I have a very eclectic background. That's one of them. There's others that I'm going to talk about here.
That's that's amazing that you've had this eclectic background and have done so much. But specifically, what about the world of cybersecurity, physical security interested you so much that you wanted to, come back and really just delve in?
Well, honestly, technology, I've always loved technology. I think one of the big things in technology was it's constantly evolving. It doesn't stop. And I love the fact that it doesn't stop. The fact that, when you go back in the 1990s when computers are coming out, I was working in a Commodore. I don't know if you even know what Windows 3.1 or Unix systems used to be. This is like pre-Linux and all that stuff. And I always enjoyed it. BBS, Yeah, some of the stuff I think the younger generation is like, what the hell is this woman talking about? But it was just something of interest that I always enjoyed doing. And, being part of a team that was one of the first teams in the city that kind of created a whole gigabit network with the first connection back to the West Coast, it was exciting. And that excitement never left. I mean, after a while, you get kind of jaded with technology. But the reality is, with its constant movement, the constant speed at which it's going, it's kind of exciting. It's a little different than the standard accounting job where you sit there day in and day out, 9 to 5. I can't do it. My personality would just kill me. I'd probably hate myself. Don't quote me on that. But I kind of like to be kept on my toes, and really, I enjoy that kind of high paced speed where you have technology that's evolving. There's so many smart people out there that you can talk to. And really, it's been fun. That's one of the reasons that I've been coming back to technology all this time. I've never moved away from it.
And you're right. It makes sense, specifically if you're looking for that fast-paced, kind of ever-changing landscape. Exactly. Technology really does offer that. And so then, Min, specifically with EMD, finding yourself in the role you're in today, how did you find yourself at EMD, and what does EMD do?
Okay, so EMD is actually a consulting firm. It's actually owned by my girlfriend, Elisa Mula. And really, one of the reasons I started getting involved, I resigned from JB&B about, I would say, a month and a half ago, specifically because 3.5 years I was given pretty much a challenge in terms of creating a technology that can solve some of the issues that's out there right now. One of the things that's happened is I've been advised by my legal team that I had to leave because I have to start concentrating on running a new business. So EMD it's great. It's a consulting firm, but it's only temporary until I make an official announcement of the other company that we're working on right now. So that's probably 6 months down the line.
Okay.
That being said, EMD is a consulting firm. It does physical and cyber, so it's a convergence of both technologies on that side, plus looking at the risk and how to mitigate that risk. So it's kind of bringing both worlds, which is really, really needed. There's a lot of conversations about the convergence of both physical and cyber because now the legal entities are now getting involved. So that is a great thing. Plus the fact that it's women owned. It's very rare to find a women owned technology consulting company that's out there. And I offered assistance to Elisa, who's like, okay, let's go, which has been great. So it's just been, I would say, probably a month to 2 months now that we've been operating. I've been operating her. She's been operating longer, but it's a women-owned company. It has the WBE, DBE, and the WeBank, which has been great. And I think a lot of companies are starting to realize that you have to diversify the market that's out there. So that's one of the reasons, I've been kind of assisting EMD and hopefully taking it off the ground, and then until the other business launches officially.
Absolutely. And actually, at Symphony, we are a woman-owned DBE as well. So,
awesome.
Yeah. Represent. It's good.
It's amazing. Yeah, I agree. But, it's needed. It's a needed industry. I think more women need to take the opportunity. Young ladies who are looking at this shouldn't be afraid with the setbacks of what people tell them. Right. And I think it's important just to set that example.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more, Min. And two, I mean, for you specifically, your own experience lends to that. I mean, being a model in this space in tech, cybersecurity. And so talking about the kind of that, you're saying the importance of bridging that gap between physical and cybersecurity and how important both are. Mm-hmm. Can you speak a little bit more to that? I mean, how the importance came up, how you kind of bring those two worlds together?
So one of the things that's typically talked about is a risk assessment. There's a cyber risk assessment as a physical risk assessment. In many conversations with physical, people only think about, the physical environmental space, not really the logical space that's taken in terms of technology that's out there. In cyber, we look at data, we look at how we protect data. But one of the components that people fail to realize is that they're looking at cyber assessments. There's a component of it that requires physical as well. And believe it or not, in some of the regulatory bodies, they do talk about physical. I believe ISO 27001 does speak about it as well. And that component is protecting that data from a physical impact. And that means theft of the data. So if you think about it, you have to have convergence in it. It makes absolute sense. You don't want anyone just penetrating and walking right through to your data center to actually, break into your servers, right? Why would you want to do that? So the reality is a lot of the compromises and vulnerabilities that occur is typically done in-house. It's internal. It's not really external. You do get external hacks, but a lot of it, majority of it is actually caused internally because of a fault or human error. It could be anything. So, we're starting to educate others that, look, you want to protect your data, but also protect the environment your data is sitting in. And if you don't do that, it's kind of irrelevant how much you're protecting your data. Because if anyone can just walk up and grab your laptop, that's pretty useless at that point. Right. So that's one of the big things about convergence of physical and cyber, because you have to protect your environment plus protect the logical space at the same time.
Have you found that it's difficult to educate people on that? I mean, showing them the importance of both?
Well, I think education, or bringing awareness, as I like to put it, is always challenging because we by nature are complacent. And you yourself probably know we always have our cell phones around, and sometimes people keep it unlocked because they're like, who's going to take my cell phone, right? Believe it or not, all your personal information data is on this thing, and you will not realize how much info people can gather from this thing, and we become complacent because of that. So education is just bringing awareness, making people more aware and cognizant that don't be too complacent about what you're accustomed to. And that it's just a constant reminder. I don't think it's an education, because we're going to forget. We're human. We're going to make errors at the end of the day, and I admit it. I don't know everything. I don't admit to know everything, but I try to understand why we do it. But at the end of the day, I think as long as we start bringing awareness to situations that's out there, even on the operational technology side, and I talk about this all the time. We're putting everything and anything on the network right now. What's protecting that? And many of these companies don't think about the security layers that have to be attached to these devices before you put it on a network. Because now, the minute you attach a device that's, I would say, vulnerable, you're exposing the entire network. And the perfect example I always tell people is, people are now putting elevator controls on the network. And if you're not thinking about security and you have a high-rise building with 50 stories, and someone breaks into that elevator panel and hacks it and basically holds a landlord for ransom, saying, you got to pay me now, or guess what I'm doing to this elevator? You have people in there. I'm dropping it. What are you going to do? So this is why, complacency is a dangerous thing, but awareness helps people understand that, look, there's a lot of things out there where we don't know about. I admit we don't know about, and we're always trying to learn. We're always trying to get faster. We're always trying to be more knowledgeable. But at the end of the day, we have to have this willingness to learn and listen. And if we are, then it helps. I think it helps with all the security and that convergence, saying, you know what, I know something's going to happen. Let me just be cautious. Not overly cautious, but just cautious and ask questions. And I think that's what's going to help this industry a lot more, is people asking more questions.
Absolutely. And so men, in pursuit of that, raising awareness, asking questions, just getting people aware. Can you tell us a little bit about the Security IQ podcast and what its goal is?
With Security IQ, what we wanted to do is bring a very casual conversation like what we're doing right now about security and all the typical issues and challenges that we're seeing in security that people are afraid to touch on. One of the big things is that when we talk about security, people have the stereotypical law enforcement and police officers and folks who are helping each other out. But security is, everybody has a stake in security. And I think what we're trying to bring awareness about in a very casual environment and conversation is, regardless of who you are and what profession you're in, security, you should be thinking about security. Number one, you're a parent, you're going to think about the well-being of your kids, right? If you're in marketing or in something like this, a podcast or a video cast, distributing content online, you have to consider what's being pushed out there and what that ramifications are. So security is in that as well. So what we're trying to do is engage people to actually talk about topics that you wouldn't typically talk about in a very casual manner, not like a webinar where, well, here's best practices and this is what you got to do because we know better than you. We're not trying to do that. What we want to do is encourage people to do some free thinking about what the issues are out there. Is the media really presenting things that it's supposed to be doing? Is it really the facts, right? Or, what am I doing that may impact security holistically? So that's what Security IQ is, just really to bring out the topics and have typical people talk about it like a human being, about what their thoughts are, what their reasonings are. I think the best one was on our last podcast, we had Ginger Hill. I don't know if you know the young lady. She's a journalist. for Security System News. Wonderful, wonderful woman. And, talking to her about security from her perspective as a journalist is very, very interesting, especially, what we're enduring right now, coronavirus, you have I'm not going to say protests or riots. I'm going to say, the issues and challenges with racism, so with the Black Lives, all the nice stuff that's out there that's, really impacting our lives in one way or another. How does the media present it, and what does it impact in, the environment, the city that we're in right now? And we just want to bring topics out there where people can really talk about it openly, no judgment, no political influence, and really force people to think for themselves as to, hey guys, let's take a step back and think about what's out there. So we're trying to make it fun. So you hear a few curse words here and left. We're trying to tone it out a little bit, but we're trying to make it entertaining for folks to just grasp what we're trying to do versus, hey, this is what you need to do, and you got to do it this way because we're actually experts at it. So when Elisa and I talked about putting it together, we're like, let's make it fun. Let's do it like a talk show. Maybe if we have any afternoon, we'll have a cocktail while we're talking about it, which is great. But it's supposed to be relaxed. I mean, we talk about relevant topics like human trafficking. I think eventually we're going to start talking about trafficking drugs and arms. So there's a lot that's going on with Security IQ, but we want people to realize that there's a lot of things that's out there people aren't aware of.
Absolutely. And I mean, you're saying like the breadth that security spans. It's not just thinking, technologically, of course, but it's just like you're saying, Security IQ then is just across the gambit. And so is there a topic that has come up in your first couple of episodes that maybe people wouldn't think about normally? So a topic about security that it applies to real world, or just, something that's
with Ginger, that's always the big one, right? With Bob Zuber, who's actually the liaison of the UN because of the Women in International Security, the New York chapter that we're involved with. He's our liaison. So you hear a lot of the aspects about what goes on with the UN, and kind of the behind the scenes, which is interesting perspective about how security is done in an international level. I think recently we have a young lady by the name of Cara who is actually has done a lot for like foreign work, and I would say there's quite a bit that people don't realize because we in the U.S. we are in a bubble, and as you step foot outside of the U.S., things change dynamically in the way people think. Who the U.S. is as a power, a global power versus who the people are. So you see a lot of perspectives that's out there that I think, I hope people will realize that, hey, look, we're very comfortable here because we're in a bubble. Maybe it's time to burst that bubble and really see what the world is really outside of that bubble that we're in. And hopefully it touches some people, but we don't know. Again, people are very have their own set minds. We're just putting content out there that hopefully people will listen to.
Yep. And you never know who's listening, right? It's true.
Oh God. Well, yeah, you're 100% right. There are some things I say that I'm kind of scratching my head, like maybe I shouldn't have said that because if my mom sees it, I'm going to be in trouble.
Not your mom. I mean, in a good way. People will listen and learn, of course. Well, Min, thank you so much. So, last question: Do you still cook? Like, do you do any kind of chef work on the side now?
Not on the side, but I use my family as a guinea pig.
There you go.
I do cook quite often. I practically cook every night. Yeah, I cook everything from scratch and I just put it on the table. There are days I get lazy. I'm like, all right, we're ordering out, but majority of the time I cook from scratch.
Wow.
Every night.
Is it just something you enjoy doing still?
I do. So I think one of the factors is if I get frustrated enough, I start cooking. And I don't eat sweets. So oh
my gosh. My
husband says not to use the word ban, but I actually don't bake at home anymore because I would bake an entire tray of Greek pastry like baklava. Take a taste of it and be like, all right, it's done. And then here you go. We're talking a big sheet of baklava that I will not touch and that my husband will be eating.
All of it.
All of it. And he's gained some weight because of that. So I've literally stopped baking because of that.
Okay. Right from baking. That's good.
I've stopped baking, but I cook. I do cook. So if people are come up, I literally been told I've been cooking. I cook for an army. So it's all right.
Wow. Getting in there. I mean, that's a good way to, I guess, get out your frustrations. It's just a thing you like to do.
Yes, but people don't like it because they're like, I'm gaining weight. So what am I going to do?
Keep eating.
Keep eating. Just eat and be quiet. Now, this is the old-fashioned name. Like, eat,
Yeah.
eat, honey, eat. Just, it's okay. Okay, I'm going to be the mother now. Eat.
Oh, man. Well, Min, really, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. If someone wanted to learn more about you, Security IQ, EMD, just get in touch with you. How might they do that?
You can email me at min.k@jmkgrp.com. Or, feel free to find me on LinkedIn and just connect with me, and we can chat there.
Thank you all for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. To learn more about our guest and their company, check out the show notes for the relevant links. If you would like to learn more about us here at Symphony, of course, subscribe to our podcast on our YouTube channel. And don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook at Symphony Technology Solutions and on Instagram at Symphony Tech Solutions. Here at Symphony, our ultimate goal is to make harmonious music out of all the technological noise. And we hope today's episode helped in doing just that. See you next time.